This module is about thinking outside the box. Really what we're doing here is evaluating the evidence and analyzing the merits of an argument, but we also need to look beyond the written word. This is more than interpretive reading and more than inferential reading or literal reading. This is actually critical reading. So you're going to learn how to expand your thinking about the text that you read. Click through this material. I will go through it. Take notes as needed. You will not have many notes, but there will be times I'll ask you to stop this video and try something and then pick it up again to find the answers. Do this before completing the comprehension checks and before continuing the rest of the assignments. What you're really doing here is examining 3 different ways to think outside the box while reading arguments. So one is to look at what is missing, what did the author not say. One is to look at rival causes, and the third is to look at alternate conclusions. So let's take a look at what's missing, and this means what significant information did the author leave out of the argument that had the author put that in there, you maybe would not buy their argument. So things like this: has a counter argument been presented? Is there significant information that's been omitted that might influence things? For example, child says to dad before she left, Mom said I can go to Charlie's house. Dad says, okay, be home by dinner. But what Mom actually said was you can go to Charlie's house after you clean your room. This is significant information that has been omitted that may change Dad's conclusion from okay to let me check your room first. So you can refer to your text, and your textbook does a pretty good job here of giving you some clues. There's a whole page on clues for common kinds of significant information that authors will leave out if they try to sway you one way or another. The second part of thinking outside the box is looking at rival causes. And this is where you take a look at your argument structure and you try to find, is there another reason? So you keep the conclusion, but you try and find another reason. This is an exercise in problem solving. In other words, you don't want to buy an argument if you haven't thoroughly thought of other reasons. And here's some examples. So you're going to ask these questions. What else might have caused this? If the interpretation is incorrect, is there another interpretation? Is the hypothesis thorough for accounting things? Is there another way to interpret the evidence? Is the author using correlation to show causation? So there's all sorts of questions you can ask that can get at this. So let me give you an example. Before we knew of the negative effects of alcohol, the number of saloons in towns of the Old West was directly proportional to the number of churches. So that term directly proportional means that as the number of saloons went up, so did the number of churches. So they were directly related to each other. And many concluded that there were more churches because churches helped people atone for the sin of drinking. So people would drink, and then of course they would need to go to church on Sunday to atone for that sinfulness, sinful behavior. So that's the conclusion, right? Can you find a rival cause for why there were more churches or why those are directly proportional? Can you find another cause? So here's where what you have to do to this is keep the conclusion. There are a direct proportion number of churches as there are to saloons in the Old West towns. You keep the conclusion and you search for a different cause. So try this on your own. You can stop the video here and then we'll start up again and I will give you an answer. So here's the answer. Maybe there are more churches because there are more people. So maybe it has nothing to do with atoning for your sin, but couldn't population explain both things? That's a rival cause. Let me give you another example. My doctor says that frequently bathing my baby can cause her to have skin irritations later in life. So the conclusion and the reasons people get skin irritations because they bathe too often as babies. They were bathed too often. So stop the video here and try to find a rival cause, and then the next click, I will give you an answer to that. Sorry, this went back in time. Okay, so here's 3 rival causes that hopefully you came up with. People get skin irritations. Why? Because maybe there are more pollutants in the air. That's a rival cause. People get skin irritations maybe because they eat the wrong foods. That's a rival cause. Maybe because they take too many prescription drugs. These are all rival causes that if I believe the rival cause, I don't buy the argument. Let's take a look at alternate conclusions. You're essentially doing a similar process, but it's the reverse. So in this one, you try and find another conclusion that the reasons support. And if you can find another conclusion, you wouldn't buy the one that that author is selling you. So how do you find an alternate conclusion? You keep the reason and find a different conclusion that the reasons support. So here's an example. Sam's student has learned the content of his Bio 101 class because he turned in all his work and he received an A. Conclusion? He learned the content. Why? Because he turned everything in and he got an A. So stop the video if you can find an alternate conclusion to this, and we'll pick it up when we come up with an answer. Okay, here's an alternate conclusion. Perhaps he didn't learn anything, but he knows how to get the right answers on tests and assignments. Is it possible that maybe you have turned in all your work and you got an A, but you didn't learn anything? So here's an alternate conclusion. Let's try another one. I won't make this cake again because it was dry. All right, here's my conclusion. I won't make this cake again. Here's my reason. It was dry. So remember, you're finding an alternate conclusion. You keep the reason. It was dry. Therefore, try and find an alternate conclusion. And I'll come up with some answers, and you can check back. You can stop the video. I will add more liquid before baking because it was dry. Another alternate conclusion is I will bake it for less time because it was dry. I will bake it at a lower temperature because it was dry. The idea here is to find a reasonable conclusion that the reason still supports. And if you do that, you don't fall into the trap of buying somebody's argument. So here are some additional ways to find another conclusion, and these are in your book as well. So reword the issue. You can use an if-then clause. You can try to identify as many conclusions as possible that follow from the same reasons. Hopefully this will help you to begin thinking outside the box and be a better critical reader.